Welcome to the Chalk Talk Gym podcast, where we explore insights into healthcare that help uncover new opportunities for growth and success. I'm your host, Jim Jordan. Welcome back to the show. And in today's episode, we have Aaron Burnett, and he's the CEO of Wheelhouse Digital Marketing Group. It's a leading agency specializing in solving complex digital challenges in healthcare and the medical device sectors for over a decade. Aaron brings invaluable expertise in navigating the evolving landscape of HIPAA, regulations, and data privacy. In this episode, we'll delve into the intricacies of direct-to-consumer marketing in healthcare. We'll explore how companies can adapt to these new privacy guidelines and leverage first-party data for better targeting and campaign efficacy. Now, you're going to learn about the latest regulation changes and their impact on your digital marketing strategies and how to innovate your data solutions to meet this changing landscape. So, Aaron, tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I'm Aaron Burnett. I'm CEO of Wheelhouse Digital Marketing Group. We are a 14-year-old digital marketing agency that helps our clients thrive by solving their toughest digital challenges. We have a concentration in healthcare and medical device clients and have had for the last 10 years. And for us, over the last couple of years, really one of the thorniest problems that we've been dealing with our clients is enabling them to succeed in an increasingly regulated environment with increasingly strict and lockdown privacy regulations.
So we spent a little bit of time talking before because we started out talking about HIPAA, and I thought I knew a lot about HIPAA, but when you're done with me, I said, I guess I do not.
So you said you have a good understanding of HIPAA, and HIPAA, the way it has been conventionally understood, it's a body of regulation that's been around for a really long time. But the definition of protected health information and the definition of HIPAA coverage for that information expanded pretty dramatically in November of 2022, when the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Health and Human Services issued new guidance, which really had the effect of law. And the guidance was an expansion of the definition of HIPAA. Historically, HIPAA has been understood to govern and protect patient information. I know who you are as a patient. We have a relationship. You've come to my healthcare system website. You've logged in. And anything that you do from that moment of login onward is protected. I'm not going to share that information with anyone else. If I track it, it's going to be only for my own systems. That is understood to have been the sacrosanct data that cannot be shared and is protected by HIPAA. The expanded definition in this new guidance was to say any identifier, including your IP address, plus what you do on a site, whether you're known or unknown. So meaning if you look at any content related to a health condition, potential treatment for a health condition, looking at an appointment, anything that pertains to the past, current, or future health state or potential treatment of an individual combined with that identifier is now also considered to be PHI. That was monumentally disruptive in digital marketing circles for agencies, for HIPAA-covered entities, because virtually all analytics platforms and nearly all tracking technologies used for digital advertising collect IP address by default and collect user behavior by default. And so overnight, the tracking technologies used for digital advertising, the Google Analytics script and data that's being collected became a violation of HIPAA. And healthcare systems, medical device clients, and companies needed to react.
So let's go a little deeper, because we were kind of slicing the line of how does that differ for a medical device company and a pharma company that historically would be, say, advertising to physicians versus going out and advertising directly to a patient, which may have a little more implication in the pharma industry than the medical device industry.
Yeah. So HIPAA and in this guidance, HHS have really focused on patient information. So if I'm, let's say, a pharmaceutical company and I am marketing to only physicians, and that's my focus, it may be possible for me to continue to use conventional tracking technologies and analytics and not have to radically change my approach to marketing or change my infrastructure. If I am marketing to patients, to consumers, then I absolutely am going to be covered by that expanded definition of HIPAA and PHI.
So I imagine for physician office and health systems, even maybe insurance companies, they're trying to do preventative programs, right? They're trying to put out programs for diabetics, for people that have arthritis, these different types of things. What are the implications on those types of programs? How would you handle it before November 2022? And how would you handle it differently today?
Yeah, I mean, before November 2022, in the main, a healthcare system, a medical device company could behave like most other companies with regard to their marketing. So pre-patient relationship, I can use all of the tracking technologies anyone else uses. I can post-patient relationship. I certainly can send email to folks. I can track using third-party technologies, the efficacy of my email marketing, whether something was opened, not opened, opened by whom, after someone opened and clicked through an email, what they looked at on my website. After November 2022, I could still do many of those things with regard to email marketing. Let's start there. I can still email a known patient, but I cannot use a third-party tracking technology to measure or monitor the efficacy or the action in that email if that tracker technology means that that data flows to that third party in addition to my own systems, or simply goes to that third party, and that third party isn't under what's called a business associate agreement. And a business associate agreement effectively obligates a third party to the same privacy regulations and the same privacy obligations as that HIPAA covered entity. So post November 2022, I need to change almost all of my tracking technologies, and I need to change the way that that data is handled. It's important to understand one big distinction here, and that is for a HIPAA covered entity, tracking the information and having the information is not problematic. If I have my own tracking technology, or if I use a technology that enables me to collect data and that data comes back to my own data warehouse or my own analytics system and it's all on my infrastructure, that's fine. It's the sharing of information that is a HIPAA violation. But the entire digital marketing ecosystem and the digital analytics ecosystem pre-November of 2022, sort of by definition, existed in a context in which data was shared. Google Analytics collects your analytics data and you view it through their user interface on their platform. Meta for Facebook and Instagram uses their own tracking technology, as does every other advertising provider. And what's important to understand is that when you use those tracking technologies and data is collected, the data goes straight to that third party. And then you view it in that third party. And the data that is collected is controlled by that third party as well. So even if you were, as a HIPAA covered entity, to find some way to begin to constrain the data that's collected in a way that you felt was now in compliance with that expanded definition of HIPAA, you could not be sure that tomorrow the data collection method wouldn't be updated by that third party in a manner that once again resulted in a violation.
And going
things
back
became
to
very complex very quickly.
Yeah, going back to your business associate agreement, having tried to cut one with Apple at the university a long time ago, their response is listen, that brings on legal risk to our organization. It changes our core infrastructure and how we behave. And you're not financially relevant enough to us to take on that risk and change our business processes. So
That's right.
For the audience members that are thinking, well, we're just going to go get these business associate agreements, probably not going to happen. So what that means is I can't go on Facebook and just post an ad for diabetes training or something that was oriented in the past. And so today, how do you help your clients solve this problem?
So a couple of responses there. One is you can go on Facebook and just post an ad. And if you were unaware, you might also place the metapixel on your website to track a campaign just as you would. It's just that you would be you'd be very likely to be sued. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits out there right now against the healthcare systems and medical device companies for doing just that sort of thing. What you need to do now, if you want not to be in violation, is to create a means of collecting data and a means of structuring and managing your digital advertising that does not require you to share that information with third parties that are not under BAA. And that's what we've spent a lot of time helping our clients with over the last couple of years.
Well, and you're going to these digital clients because they have the people, right? They have the population, they have the captured audience. So is there any way that I could place an ad with that captured audience without using my people? I mean, I guess, usually having done an ad or two myself, you usually go in and you say, I'm targeting diabetics, I'm targeting this, right? This age group. Is that a violation, or is it when I feed the specific people I'm looking for into?
That's such a great question, because that gets right to the core of this. Fundamentally, this is an issue of data strategy. When you're working with a platform pre-November 2022, you're using third-party data. This is data somebody else owns. Let's use Facebook as the example, because they have ended up being kind of the poster child for privacy violations in this situation. You're right. Facebook has the massive audience, and you've been able to go in to log into their platform and say, I want to reach men in this age range with these demographics and these psychographics in this particular geography. And that was so easy. They did all the work. They have the audience and you just tweak and tune. You're using third-party data, but third-party data is problematic in this situation because you can't send them the data that enables them to facilitate your targeting or to optimize your campaign. And so what we've been doing in working with our clients is enabling them to take control of their own destinies by using what's called first-party data to power their insights and power their targeting, and to drive more successful outcomes than they could have with third-party data. So let's talk about first-party data. First-party data is data that you have, that you own. You have permission to have that data and use that data. Remember, it's not a violation to have collected data or to use that data. It's a violation to share the data. And so what healthcare systems and those who are HIPAA-covered entities need to do, and what we've been doing with our clients, is to help them develop first-party data strategies. There are a lot of implications for that. You need to be focused on collecting the data in a significant enough manner that you can glean insights, understanding what's valuable about that data, and then being able to combine that data with performance information in a HIPAA-compliant data warehouse or business intelligence platform, so that your analysts, the people who are running your digital advertising, can look at that and see, oh, I see the patterns in this data. I understand that we should be targeting, again, you could do the same sort of thing. We should be targeting men in this age range, in this geography, and with this demographic and this psychographic. An analyst can take that information and action that information in an advertising platform. You cannot share data. You can't share any protected health information. But having learned in the context of a data warehouse or a business intelligence platform, the types of audiences you should be targeting, you can then go to a third-party platform and you can use that information to target those audiences there. But what's required is this notion of what's called an air gap. There can be no data connection between that protected health information and a third-party platform. The implication then is you've now been able to manually target audiences in this third-party platform. You have to have a different way to measure the performance of those campaigns that does not result in your sharing PHI with those platforms. And that requires a different approach to analytics, a different approach to advertising tracking that, again, protects the HIPAA-covered entity, but allows you to drive successful outcomes.
So I'm a health system. I know this patient's a diabetic because they're in my billing system, right?
Right.
I know that maybe they have an obesity over X and they're maybe even type 2 diabetic, and I have that. And I may or may not know, but I may know that they've attended some of our workshops that we've had for weight control or education. So that's a pretty good profile.
Mm-hmm.
How would and I can direct mail them because I have their information. That's clean. But how do I take that profile and legally use it on Facebook or Instagram or one of the others? Would I be saying this is the profile I'm looking for without any connection to the back office that made me get that? Is that what the line, is that the gap you're talking about?
Yeah. So without any one-to-one targeting, you can, if you have your own email system and you have permission to, you certainly could email them. You could direct market to them that way. But in terms of digital advertising, you're right. You can target a profile and not an individual, because you can't provide that. You can't leverage third-party tracking to target or to optimize over time. You have to take a different approach.
So how are you helping people build that internally to their systems?
A few different ways. One, we've created HIPAA compliant data solutions where conceptually, remember I described that third-party tracking uses third-party cookies. Sites that may have dozens, sometimes larger sites have hundreds of third-party cookies. And those cookies, that tracking technology by definition is a HIPAA violation. So we first implement a solution that gives each health system what's called a private client ID. That becomes the only way that data can be collected on a site. All the other stuff goes away. Everything that's collected goes through this private client ID and is defined positively by the healthcare system's compliance team and the marketing team with legal review. So now you know absolutely what's being collected. And then we implement all of this in a context that's called server side. So conventionally and historically, analytics tracking, digital advertising tracking occurred in the browser on what's called the client. We're moving everything to the server so that all the connections, all the communication is now is via API. It's directly to a server connection with a third party. And the data that is communicated via that API is also within the control of the health system. So now we control the point of collection. We control the point of sharing as well. And we can filter and share only the information that we want to be shared with those third parties. And it's all within control of the health system. So we completely changed the paradigm from client side, where you have no control of what's being collected and you don't know if what's being collected is a violation or not, to only a single means of collection, and all the communication is server side and it's entirely controlled by the healthcare system. And then we help our clients to glean the insights and aggregate the data they need and to optimize campaigns, because we have developed a HIPAA compliant data warehouse and data science team. And so we can bring in client first party data, third party data from advertising platforms and analytics, and we can aggregate and do what's called harmonize that data so that it all can be evaluated in the same way. And we can look at performance, including PHI, across campaigns and platforms, and surface the insights that our digital advertising analysts need to then go out and adjust targeting and adjust campaign optimization and drive performance. And our experience has been that as we've shifted to digital advertising powered by first-party data instead of third-party data, the outcomes that we're driving are much more successful than they have been in the past. Takes a lot to get there, but the value that's delivered is extreme.
So share with the audience the status of the lawsuits that are going on, because we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, so there are many, and I won't go into the individual lawsuits against healthcare systems, but I will highlight one particular lawsuit in response to the expanded definition of HIPAA that was offered by HHS in November of 2022. The American Hospital Association sued HHS. And in early June, a judge in federal district court in Texas largely sided with the American Hospital Association in a way that I think probably was initially very exciting to folks. I'm not sure if it's going to continue to be as exciting as they had hoped. The judge's ruling was that HHS, in effect, created law without due review and effectively due process. So the ruling was against HHS, but it was a procedural ruling. In fact, what was cited in the judgment was that the HHS violated the Administrative Procedures Act. So if you distill this, I think, 35-page single-spaced ruling into sort of the core, it was, all right, HHS expanding the definition of PHI to include IP address and URLs or content visited by just an anonymous visitor is a step too far. You created law and you allowed no one to actually weigh in on this. You didn't allow administrative review. You just published de facto law. And although what you did may be good and may be correct regulation, which is what the judge said, this might well be good, the way you went about it was wrong. And so you need to, if you want this to have the force of law and be a standing regulation, you have to take another run at it. And the judge was explicit in saying, I am not precluding you from taking another run at this and making this have the effect of law. You just need to go about it a little bit differently. So to me, that's a very narrow ruling. And that means that healthcare systems should be cautious in jumping for joy and believing that that expanded definition of HIPAA will go away. I don't think it will. And I think even if the expanded definition of PHI and that expansion of HIPAA didn't stand, the fact remains that 19 states have individual privacy regulations, their own state level privacy regulations. And some of those are more restrictive than the expanded definition of HIPAA. And so, I think whether it's a state level privacy regulation or it's a federal mandate under HIPAA, I think the right thing to do is what we've been helping our clients to do, and that is take control of your own destiny by learning to cultivate and rely on and power your digital marketing with first-party data so that you don't have to rely on third-party platforms and third-party data.
Boy, you're a good straight man. So the other piece we had talked about is that even if these suits get delayed, the fact of the matter is that Europe is increasing their personal standards, and want to share your view on that. It's coming. You're not going to predict a year and when, but it's coming, right?
Yeah. Our perspective is that the sort of highly restricted privacy regulations that are first impacting healthcare organizations here are going to begin to impact organizations full stop, digital marketing writ large in the United States. And so we also operate in Europe and have clients who are in Europe. And so we look at GDPR as the privacy measure that we should aspire to be operating in the US. If we can operate in that sort of a context, and particularly from the perspective of the data that is required, the data collection methods and the data is required to be effective, if we can do that there, then we're in very good stead to drive very successful outcomes and performance for clients in the US, regardless of what happens with privacy regulations or what happens with a particular browser like Google saying they will or will not support third-party cookies. You don't want to be in a position where the actions of a regulatory body or the actions of some large platform can completely upend your digital marketing in a way that's massively disruptive.
And I think that's the point, is that it's time to get on it.
Yeah.
And so as you were talking, I thought about two business models that are emerging that may be either enabled or inhibited by this. And the first is this concept of a real-time health system record where the public health and the healthcare delivery organizations can share information to be more predictive and anticipatory. But I guess in that case, since they are all in the same business of people, the business agreements probably would be sorted. But the personal healthcare record category is attempting to pull down the electronic health record information and allow you to connect your Apple Watches and your weight measure devices and your, blood ox, and also put in your own personal information. And a lot of times those are coming from these third parties. So does that inhibit the development of that model?
Well, it certainly creates a context in which the risks for those third parties can become profound and maybe prohibitive. Remember, you can share whatever you want to share if you have a business associate agreement in place.
Yeah. But it's never going to happen with an Apple Watch and your Quado, QARDIO blood pressure cuffs and weight. They use that for high blood pressure and different things like that today for some of the preventative systems that they're using.
Right. Yeah. And so in those contexts, it may be possible to get legal consent from every end user that specific healthcare information can be shared for this specific context. And then if you can ensure that that specific healthcare information isn't then shared again to a third party entity to which consent wasn't granted, that information isn't ever aggregated and provided to someone else for advertising purposes or marketing targeting or some other form of analytics, then you could be all right.
So, the whole point of all these programs is we're increasing our revenue and reducing our costs. So you had said that by increasing our costs to get this capability, that you're actually having more productivity on the close rate or the lead generation hit rate. Is it double digit difference? What are you saying?
Yeah. It's double-digit difference. And the difference is, we were chatting a little bit earlier about how easy it has been to log into a third-party platform and define an audience for targeting purposes. That ease, I think, masked the lack of efficiency in that targeting. All of those platforms want it to feel very easy for you to tightly define the audience that you want to target. And then the results are the results. And because the targeting is in the context of that third-party platform and the performance is reported in the context of that third-party platform, your ability to then reconcile the apparent performance in the platform versus real-world business performance was somewhat hamstrung. And I think there was a disincentive to put in the extra effort to do that, to export the data or create a data warehouse context where you could in fact reconcile third-party data with your own business results. A shift to focusing on first-party data by definition means that the signals that we're using for targeting and the signals that we're using to determine campaign efficacy are truly the business result that we want to achieve. And so we're much closer to business value, and we're optimizing for true business value in our own data, and we're targeting based on our own data. So the accuracy of the targeting is better, and fidelity of the business result that we're measuring is better as well. And so we absolutely have seen well into double-digit performance gains and efficiency improvements as we've shifted to first-party data.
So just maybe to make it really simple for the audience, that if you used to be in the old days with direct mail, you put out, 100 pieces of mail and you were lucky to get 1%, right? And you spent some money on that and you acquired the list. But if you put out 100 and you know somebody, you open it up, right? And now that rate is 10%. What you're saying is that difference could more than justify creating some internal capability to get those numbers up to be highly accurate by having your own first party.
Absolutely. The other thing that is an implication here is that first party data has become an asset for large companies, and first party data has become available as a targeting method for advertisers. So I'm a healthcare system. I have my own first party data. Well, so too does a grocery store, a cable network, all sorts of businesses that you might not otherwise consider to have first party data. Certainly a retailer like Walmart, and they all have very clear understanding of their first party data. And they have begun to, are in the midst of, and many have mature models where they have monetized their first party data in tandem with media networks, so that you can, using connected television, for example, target Kroger shoppers with a specific demographic profile or a specific purchase pattern or a specific geography. You don't get access to the data. So they maintain the privacy of the folks in their first party data warehouse, but you get to target an audience in their first party data. So it's your own first party data targeting, and it's first party data available to you through other networks, other business relationships that have sprung up largely as a result of these increased privacy regulations.
Interesting. So where could people go to get educated on this? Have you written your book yet?
I haven't written my book yet. We published quite a lot on it, though. So they can certainly visit our blog and read, and also see lots of video that we published on this topic. If they have questions, they can certainly reach out to me. I'm Aaron at wheelhouseemg.com. And our website is wheelhouseemg.com as well.
Very good. I will put that in the show notes. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I really appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Well, in anticipation of the response, we talked about, love to have you back to talk about SEO, because that's another changing world for people, and it's an important topic.
Yeah, that's an exciting world right now.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Chalk Talk Gym podcast. For resources, show notes, and ways to get in touch, visit us at chalktalkgym.com.